All right, we're now 3 minutes in. I think that's a good time to get started. Uh, Hi everyone. For those that don't know me yet, I'm Bruno. I'll be hosting these product walkthrough to showcase the new features of RightPack. Also, show a little bit of how RightPack works in a normal operation, I'd say, without just focusing on the new features for those that don't know how RightPack works yet. And at the end, we'll be hosting a Q&A. So if you, during the presentation, have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And at the end, we can go through the questions, and we'll be opening the mics as well by then. There we go. So if you want to reach out to us at any point after this meeting, feel free to reach out to our support email, where we can help you with any questions or anything that may come up later. And moving on with RightPack. As of today, we now have 3 products for RightPack. So today I'm going to show, of course, in Tableau, but in the beginning of the year, we also released RightPack for Power BI as well. So now, if you also use Power BI or are planning to move into Power BI, now you have that the RightPack possibility as well in there. All the same features, everything is pretty much the same, of course, within the context of Power BI. Now, we all know how RightPack works, or most of us here seem to know how RightPack works, but for those that don't, so we have Tableau today that's perfect for helping people see data. And essentially, in any actionable use case where you would want to input data or get some additional context, change a value, you couldn't do that directly on Tableau. But now with RightPack, of course, you can do that directly here on Tableau, and we can easily bring RightPack in to do that. So today, besides that, I'll show you how RightPack works, how it integrates with Tableau, but also about the new features that we have on version 6.1 for the server or 2.1 for the cloud. We essentially made an improvement on the notifications. That was one of the main focus, is to improve the collaboration aspect of RightPack within Tableau. So now you can configure triggers for the notifications. So in the previous version, we added email notifications where you can notify people individually on an entry, okay? But now you can make it so that the notifications are automatic based on an insert, update, or delete of data, either by specific groups of people or individual people, or as well based on a parameter. You can notify people by email, and now Slack and Teams as well was added as a new option for. Essentially, you can configure a webhook that will receive the notifications on Slack and Teams. On top of that, before, when you notified someone directly, it was not possible to know that you did so. But now that information actually shows alongside the timeline when using the forms. You will be able to easily see if someone was notified. Next, one highly requested feature, which is the editable search fields. So as of now, or as of before this release, it was not possible to change a value without first creating, for example, a duplicate of that as a custom field on RightPack. Now there's no need for that. There's a little check that we can do on the smart table to make that field editable, and I'll show that during the demonstration as well, where we can how we can set that up. Of course, this doesn't change the source data directly. Okay, that's by design. RightPack will never do that, but we made the configuration in itself easier for you to get started. And finally, another highly requested feature, which is to insert data without having source data. So effectively creating new records with RightPack. we'll also take a look into this on the new version. So let's see everything actually going together. And I'm going to jump over here to Tableau desktop for that. Let's just arrange my screens around. Okay. So as usual, I'm using Tableau desktop just because it's easier to show around how everything is set up and all the configurations work together with the data sources and everything. So everything works the same on Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud on the browser. And to start the demonstration today, I'll go to a use case that we see requested a lot as well, where we can see a list of items, and then we want to change certain values. But at the end of the day, we actually want these values to be approved by someone before they're actually effective. So in the context of what we have here, that's for apartments, checking their performance based on revenue and occupancy rate. And a business user can come in here and make their adjustments, either based on incorrect data, or this could be also applied to forecasting, considering that we're seeing it by month. Of course, we can contextualize the use case to whatever needs we want, and that's what actually defines the use case, not exactly how you configure IPIC. So if I want to do a forecast, I would add the year and the month as well as source fields. And by source fields, I mean the columns in highlighted over here, okay? And the custom fields in this context are just adjustments, okay? So we're adjusting the values, and these could be based on incorrect data, for example. So we have write-back configured as a smart table, where essentially it reads all the values from the left. And I can see on the left all the items in here all the way through. And then I see them all on the right-back side as well. If I need to narrow down for a specific item, I can just, for example, just filter it over here. And I'm working on just that one item in particular. Or I can just work like these and then match it up based on what we are seeing. We use Tableau to make a nice visualization of the data, okay, because that's what Tableau is great at, and eventually do any calculations that are necessary. Or in this context, I just want to replace, so I'm using Tableau to create a calculation that allows me to show the replaced value. However, as you notice over here, that it only shows a value if it is approved. So let's go to something that still has the original value. For example, this apartment 244. I'll look for it on right back side. It's in here. So now I can just provide a value here. Let's say that I want to, so 244. I'm gonna say this was actually around 15,000, and the occupancy rate around 80%. Notice how we can customize the numeric fields on writeback to look as if they were currency or percentages, okay? And this is customizable, okay? So by default, it's just a number, but you can add masks to it if you want to make it easier for the users to see or to provide additional context on what they're actually doing. Now, when I submit, we'll see that apartment 244 will move from the original status into a pending status, but the actual value will stay the same, okay? So let's just wait for my data entry over here. And once done, this will actually trigger a refresh of the data on Tableau, okay? So this is a configuration that we can set up on writeback to refresh automatically a given data source. Of course, provided that the data source is actually in a live connection. Okay, so now, as you can see, it's in the pending state, but nothing's changed. So the values are still as they were before. Now, that's the job for the business user, okay? They can continue working, submit more values. They can copy and paste from Excel into here, or Alternatively, it's possible to download a template file where you can upload multiple rows in bulk. Okay, so for example, if I go here, this generates a template file um, with the headers of the current context. And then I'm just on another screen opening the mentioned file. So just a second, there we go. And the file will look something like this. So a very simple, straightforward file that we now can add this information. So let's say that I'm doing a correction of the data, right? But I'm doing manual entries. If at some point I had this information that I'm fixing somewhere else, I could just go into that other, paste it in here, and then save, and then finally upload it directly over here on RightBig. And when you do so, you click submit, and then it fills the rows. Of course, at the moment I don't have that, but that's how it would work. One other thing the user can do is notify someone by email. So whenever I do a change, I can come in here and say, okay, I want this person and this person to get an email as soon as I make a change. And as of now, that's most of what an end user will be able to do. And as you can see, they can easily change the values directly or through here. The next step would be for the manager now. So the manager has a different report where they can see the current pending adjustments. So the one that I did just now, we can see it over here, okay? We can see the person that made it, we can see their values, and then an overall statistics on the process. So by default, WriteBack will capture the user that's using it, so we can easily then show this information, okay? And that's based on the single sign-on that you can set up on WriteBack. You didn't even see me log in because you can automatically log in into WriteBack. You can set up OpenID or a SAML. SAML tends to be the most used one across most of our customers because it's just very easy to set up, and almost everyone is using SAML at some point or in some application. And once you have everything with the same protocol, then it's easy to automatically sign on everyone everywhere. And WriteBack supports that too, which will in its place capture the username and also the email if you configure it for that, which is very useful now for notifications as well. Because the manager can just now select this user. Let's say that I want to approve, and I can then notify, let's say that I want to notify everyone that this was approved because it's an important apartment in our portfolio. Then, of course, I can add a comment saying, "Oh, good," for example. And then when I submit, that goes into the database. I see all that disappearing from there. And finally, the apartment 244 over here will change from the pending state to approved with my new value. So 15,000 and 80%. Now, the person will get an email. Let me check if I get the email in the meantime. But while waiting for that, I'll also show you that if we wanted, we can have the email being sent automatically on submission. So going back to the WriteBack configuration, and someone as a WriteBack creator can configure or reconfigure WriteBack at any time, okay, by opening the configuration screen. I'll go through it in a second from scratch, but essentially now we have these notifications option over here that we can manage our notifications. At the moment, I don't have anything. I'm just doing the manual one, but I can now add email, Slack, or Teams. For example, for Slack, you're going to be able to provide a webhook that's going to receive the notification on submit, edit, or delete. Same thing for Teams. However, for email, we can be a little bit more specific, where on submit, edit, or delete. So I'll just typically use these two. Someone that's on our user list, so I can make everyone or just a specific person get the email, or even based on a parameter. So let's say that I have the username field available. I can make it so that the user that's on that username gets the email as well. So And I can even do both at the same time. So when you save this, I'll just notify on change. Oh, notify email. Oh, I'll just save, submit, and now automatically, whenever I do a change, an email will be triggered for that user. So I can just come in here, say either on approve or reject, okay, and I can provide a reason for it as well. We can the person on that email will get the notification. Of course, this is just a dummy email, doesn't really exist, so we won't be able to see anything. But in the meantime, I can actually show how an email like this works. So, for example, it's not exactly for the use case that I showed before, but this is something like what we can expect. There will be a similar format where we can see the current item. So this would be the property name in this case, and then the actual status that the manager provided. The email will be formatted very similar to this, with the context of the use case in question. And for the manager as well, that's pretty much how we have the use case going. So now if we go back to the user, the next time they go to the dashboard, they will see that their apartment is now approved, and they can see the change effectively there. At any point, of course, they can still make an adjustment again and correct the changes. All of these can be easily set up directly on the report. So we bring the extension in somewhere, and then we configure it. So in this case, the configuration is very straightforward. So we are just reading the property name, which identifies each property uniquely. And then we create the table that Writeback will use to store the changes. Then for the changes, we have two fields, one for the revenue as a number, and one for the occupancy rate as a number as well. So as simple as that, we set smart table, two fields, and then click on submit. That creates the table, and everything is ready to be used. Then, of course, there's some additional, let's say, development layer on top of Tableau, because on Tableau, we are seeing the source data, which in this case, it's this extract. But then we have to connect to the Writeback table, and we're doing that exactly on the property name. Okay, so if you see, I can click on here. It's based on the property field right there. Okay, and then again with the manager approval, which is another table because it's another Writeback configuration, we're also joining on the property name. Then in here on the actual worksheet, for example, if I check the net revenue, I think it's or I'll just look for the value. Look for net revenue. Okay, I believe it's this one over here. We have a condition where we check if the value from Writeback exists, and if it does not, we show the original values. But if it is approved and it does exist, we show the Writeback value over here. So that's the one from Writeback. And then essentially we're building these all very easily with just two columns in this case. But of course, if you have more columns, you have to adjust to that need. So that's pretty much how Writeback works today. And of course, we can use it as a table or as a form, as we can see in here. Okay, so so far we are using the two most common forms. We also have a pop-up form too, where we can click on a button. If we don't have enough space on the dashboard, Writeback can pop out and like so. it will take the context of the selected mark. Or in this case, we're not actually setting it up with mark required, so we don't need to select any mark specifically because we're using filters. So as we have write-back configured for year and quarter, over here, we're just going to see that. Yep. And we can then just over here in the bottom uncheck the mark required, meaning that whenever we open it brings all the marks. But all the marks in this context is just one, because it's the one combination between year and quarter. All right, so let's do a jump in here to the new functionalities. Well, I already showed you one about the notification triggers, so that's very straightforward. Of course, we have to first go into the write-back manager and do a configuration on the email provider. Okay, so I'm just gonna actually show you that in a second. So the write-back manager is the tool where you can do the setup, like the database connection, authentication, and everything. And then on the notification aspect, we now have 3 options before we only had email. So once you enable it, you can provide your connection details over here to your email server. If you use Outlook or Gmail, by default, we have them here. But of course, you can also use third-party providers or on-prem SMTP servers. Once this is set up, you submit and then apply the settings, and the channel becomes available on the notifications over here when you go to the notification configuration for that dataset. These triggers are per dataset, so you can easily customize them across all of your datasets if you want, with specific users per dataset. The next new thing I want to show is the standalone dataset. So this is something that we come across a lot where people want to do either budgeting, planning, forecasting, or anything, but not actually based on context that already exists. They want to create new scenarios or create new entries, new items, or even at the far end, a full-fledged CRM or inventory management system. That's not all possible because we're now just able to add new rows. As you can see in here, I can add as many rows as I need. And if I want to add new values over here, for example, so I already have West Europe, North Europe, East Asia, so for example, South Europe for 2026, quarter 1. I'm going to have a sales budget of 50,000, for example, a production budget of 80,000, and a workforce budget of 100,000. I can say that we're planning on hiring, considering that we need more workforce, for example, for the production. And then you can just go here, submit another one, also for 2026, quarter 1. Let's do these 180,000, 100,000, and 50,000 over here. We don't need to hire over there. So now I'll just remove these 2, and now I can submit. And I now have 2 more rows in my table, one for Oceania and one for Southern Europe. And just like any other write-back, we can just come in here and change the values. Okay, so actually I need to hire, so I'll just switch these to true, submit, and that's it. So now easily I can keep track of this because all the changes are tracked on the database. Okay, and that's as simple as that. So the configuration itself is also very straightforward. Okay, so we choose the standalone dataset option over here on the top, and that hides the worksheet section. And then just like any other write-back, we create a table and then the field that we actually want. So in this context, all the fields that are drop-downs come from, or except the quarter in this case, because the quarter only has 4 values, are coming from a dynamic predefined. So this means that we have a parameter in a worksheet. It can just be some base data or anything that's being used somewhere else. But essentially, I have the branches for the branch, I have the years for the years, and then the quarter as listed in here. Then I have all the numeric fields. So the 3 numeric fields over there are being like so as number, mandatory, and also with the mask that I mentioned earlier, where we can customize the mask to show or to format it, in this case with a US currency style, for example. And lastly, we have a Boolean field for the hiring option. Now, of course, ideally, that's typically how I want to work, and that's it. You just directly through here, you can see everything. But just for the sake of demonstration, I also made the table visible in here so we can see exactly what's going on behind the scenes. So you see the 2 new ones that I just entered are now displayed in here as well, alongside everything else. And I can see also the person that made that change, and all the context is in here. We're also noticing that I have a filter over here for these active. So if I move these out and show over here how this is actually looking, notice how for Oceania, I have 2 rows. That's because before I had hiring set to false, and then I changed it to true. And that's how write-back works whenever you make a change or a deletion. It doesn't actually change the data that was submitted before. It flags it as false and adds a new value or a new row with the new values. So this way you can keep an history of the changes. And of course, all of that is as a timestamp in place as well. Oh, sorry, that's not what I meant to do. It has a timestamp in place where we can easily order by timestamp, even if you don't want to use the is active column. You can easily read the data back how we want it, and in a clear way to understand what changes are going through. So I'll just put this back as it was. Rather, I can just move it back over here. There we go. So now we can see everything as we wanted and as expected. Now, as this is a new table, of course, with new data, if you just want, for example, to merge it with other data that you already have, you can easily do that too. So for that, I'll just open up another use case that I have in here that does exactly that. So before we had to do some sort of workaround to create some dummy worksheets or provide some additional steps that were not strictly ideal, let's say. But now everything is much more simple to implement because we can just simply create the standalone data set with that option. So just bringing it over here, bring the login, and now over here we have the category field as I mentioned that is set up as a standalone data set. Okay, that is essentially allowing us to submit new categories that we are then using directly over here as a union. Okay, where in our union we have our source data together with our category information. So let me see over here. We should have some categories already. Let me check what's wrong over here. Just a second. I don't seem to have any data at the moment. That's okay. But essentially, right now, whenever we create a new data set, it's very straightforward. We just bring it in, set it up as a standalone data set, and then we can use that table again anywhere. Because at the end of the day, that's just a new table in your system with new values that you can join with everything else with a union, or just simply read it directly like I'm doing over here. And that brings us to the last thing I wanted to show, which is the source fields, editing source fields directly. So This is as of now available just on the smart table because it's the one that has the most friendly interface to do that. So in terms of setting up writeback, everything is very similar. Okay, so we start off with a smart table with the source fields that we want and the table that we want to create. We still, as a requirement, need to have a custom field. And in this case, it could be a comment, a reason, um, anything that, like a Boolean even, anything that justifies or just a little field for us to provide some context on why we are doing this change. And then the fields, the sourced ones, now have a editable source field option over here that we can check. So there's no need to create a new field for everyone. So in here, for example, I have customer information and I want to manage their current information where I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. If I wanted to do this before this change, I would need to over here just have one source field, but then I would have to create 5 new custom fields, one for each of the columns. And I would have to give them a different name even, so it doesn't overlap. So it took a little bit more steps. Now I can just check the editable source field. And they still become separated by over here. So we can easily identify that these are source fields, but they're not highlighted like this. So the highlighted one means that we cannot modify it. But now in here, I can actually make the change. So for example, for these customer 125, I can say, okay, so let's change them to EOS 62. And maybe the support, we're going to premium, for example. I can say a reason over here that's going to be support or region change. Of course, the drop-down options over here are based on what you want, so or whatever makes sense for your use case. And these are the ones that I created for this particular context. So now I can just click on submit, and I'll refresh my source data over here. Once this is done, so now for customer 125, I should see the region change over here to 2, and now the support tier is set to premium. And these may not be necessary depending, of course, on your needs, but I created just a little indication to understand if this was already modified by writeback or not, and I can see the user as well as the reason for that change. And again, as all the other use cases for writeback, we can either do the bulk import as well, so we can do the change in bulk, or directly do the normal changes through here. And again, the setup is very straightforward, as always, with all the writeback configurations. And I'll just do one over here from scratch for anyone that hasn't created one yet. So I'll just bring the extension object in. And through here, I'll just get my tracks file. You'll have your own tracks file for your site, okay? And then we start configuring. So it's going to be like that right off the box. And if I want to create, I can now create a standalone data set. If I want to submit new data, of course, in this case, we're working with countries, so maybe it doesn't make sense to submit new country information. But now, if I want to, let's say, change the values for a given country, I'll go with a smart table. And what I have here, it's the country. Let me add in also a couple of more fields that I may want to here. So let's say I'm going to add the sales value to the detail. And I'm going to go back here. And I want to now have the sales and the profit, okay? So this way I'll remove the others that don't matter for now. And if I want to make something, I'll just do the smart table because I want to make them editable, okay? Over here. And then new values for country KPI. I don't need to create the profit and the sales again, but if I want to provide a reason, it's going to be a predefined field where I can do incorrect data, new report from finance, or let's say that we are just planning the next year, for example. So I'll just submit. That will create a new table or a new table for writeback with the country column, as well as a column for the profit and the sales that we can adjust directly. So in here, I can just easily now change the values. Okay. Provide a reason and then submit. So these will keep track of my change. Okay. So it will also store what was there before as well as the new value. So we can
This is an omni chart.
Sorry. I think okay, let's get back. So this allows us to easily do that change directly and go through with our change, and we can see the value that was there before on the table as well as the new value. So if I now create, for example, a new data source, I can look for Postgres over here, which is the database that I'm using. And in there, I should have a new table with the country changes that I'm doing. Just look for the KPI. So in that table, for that entry over there, I now have two rows, which one at the previous values that were there before, okay, the ones that Tableau is telling us, and another one with the new values that I just submitted with a reason as well that I entered. So with that, now the next step would be to modify the data source, add the writeback table into the same source, for example, which is actually what we are doing over on this one. So if I show over here the data source information, we have the two tables, so the source and the writeback with the updates, and then all of the columns are actually calculated fields. Because now I can, for example, for the segment, I can see in here that it's a calculation where we are checking if the writeback value is different from the original one, if it's not empty, and if it does exist. And if that's the case, we show the writeback value instead of the value that was there before. So we can see the change directly alongside the source data as well. So with that, I would say that I'm through with my everything that I wanted to show. Just one other thing I forgot to check that very quick. We now have the option to go directly to the documentation in certain screens. This is over here, or also on some other configuration screens, so we can easily get to that configuration point, as well as the chat integration where if someone is online or not, you can reach out directly. If you're online, we can try to answer right away. Otherwise, we'll get your contact to answer by email later on. So always trying to make it easier for you to set up writeback, to reach out to us. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And yeah, I'll just quickly jump over here to one last thing that I need to show, which is so today we're doing the webinar for Tableau, and next Thursday on the, I believe it's the 10th or 9th of October, we'll be hosting the product walkthrough for Power BI as well. So without anything else to add, thank you everyone for being here, and hopefully you were able to get to know all the new features, how everything works on RightPick as well. And again, if any questions come up after watching these or re-watching or sending it to someone, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help with your questions. All right, everyone. Have a nice one, nice day, nice week, and take care.